You won't believe what I had to do to get rid of my nightmare of a roommate. But let me tell you, it worked like a charm. And he was out the door in less than 48 hours. Picture this, I'm standing in our living room, heart pounding, as I casually drop a bombshell that sends him into a full-blown panic. He thought he could keep dodging rent, blasting his music at 3 a.m. and treating our apartment like his personal trash heap. But I turned the tables so fast he didn't know what hit him. And the best part, it was all legal but oh so satisfying. Was I wrong for playing dirty to reclaim my sanity? Tell me in the comments if you think I went too far, or if you'd have done the exact same thing. Let me take you back to the beginnings. Because this didn't happen overnight, it was a slow burn that turned into a raging fire. I was 25 at the time, fresh out of college, and scraping by in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Seattle. Rent was sky high, like $2,500 a month for the whole place, and I needed a roommate to make ends meet. I'd been living alone for a few months after my previous roomie moved out for a job, and I was enjoying the peace, but bills don't pay themselves. So, I posted an ad on Craigslist. Yeah, I know, old school, but it worked before. I described the place cozy, near public transit, shared utilities, no pets, and I was looking for someone clean, reliable, and employed. Simple, right? I got a bunch of responses, but one stood out, this guy named Alex. He emailed me saying he was 28, worked as a freelance graphic designer, and was desperate for a place after his last lease ended abruptly. He sounded normal, attached a reference from a previous landlord, and even offered to pay the first month's rent up front. I thought, jackpot. This guy's got his act together. We met at a coffee shop near the apartment for an interview, and he seemed chill. Tall, lanky dude with messy hair wearing a band tee and jeans. We chatted about our interests. I told him I was into hiking and video games, and he said he loved music production and staying up late to work on projects. Red flag number 1, but I brushed it off, because who doesn't pull all-nighters sometimes? He asked about the rules: quiet hours after 11 p.m., split chores, no smoking inside. He nodded along, said he was easygoing and hated drama. I showed him the place that afternoon. A small living room with a worn couch, kitchen with basic appliances, my bedroom at the front, his at the back with a view of the alley. He loved it, signed the sublease agreement I printed from a template online, handed over Warner's $250 in cash for his half of the rent plus deposit, and moved in the next day. For the first week, it was bliss. He'd say hi when we crossed paths, kept his room door closed, and even washed the dishes once. I remember thinking, this is going to work out great. But then the cracks started showing. It began with small things, like leaving his takeout containers on the counter overnight, attracting ants. I'd politely mention it, and he'd apologize with a grin saying, sorry man, late night grind. No big deal, I thought, everyone adjusts. Then came the music. Alex wasn't kidding about his production hobby. He'd blast electronic beats from his room at midnight, shaking the walls. I'd knock and ask him to turn it down, and he'd complain. But with this annoyed sigh, like I was the one being unreasonable. One night, around 2 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I banged on his door, and when he opened it, bleary-eyed and reeking of weed, another thing we hadn't discussed, he snapped at me. Dude, I'm working. Can't you just wear earplugs? I was stunned. Working, at 2 a.m. I reminded him of the quiet hours, and he rolled his eyes, muttering something about how I was too uptight. That was the first real argument, and it left a bad taste. From then on, the hostility ramped up. He'd passive-aggressively leave notes on the fridge, like, buy your own milk next time, even though I'd only used a splash once. And the rent? Oh, that's where it got ugly. About a month in, rent was due on the 1st. I texted him a reminder, and he said he'd Venmo me later that day. Later turned into tomorrow, then the weekend. By the 5th, I knocked on his door. Hey, Alex, about the rent. He cracked it open, looking disabled, and said he was waiting on a client payment. It'll be in by next week, promise. I wasn't thrilled, but I covered his share to avoid late fees with the landlord. Won $250 out of my savings. Next week came and went, no money. When I confronted him, he got defensive. Why are you hounding me? Freelance gigs are unpredictable. I'll pay when I can. That's when I realized this wasn't a one-off. He was dodging on purpose. I started noticing other signs. He'd order Uber Eats every night, buy new gadgets like headphones and a mighty keyboard, but claim he was broke for rent. I felt like an idiot for not checking his references more thoroughly. Turns out, when I finally called the number he gave, it was a fake, some friend pretending to be a landlord. By month 2, he owed me $500, and the apartment was a war zone. Trash piled up in his room, spilling into the hall. He'd hog the bathroom for hours, and the verbal jabs escalated. Once, after I asked him to clean the kitchen, he yelled, "This isn't your mom's house." Get off my back! I was miserable, lying awake at night, stressing about money and dreading coming home. I tried talking it out like adults. Sat him down one evening with a beer each, saying, "Look, Alex, this isn't working. You're behind on rent, and the noise is killing me. Maybe it's time to find a new place." He laughed in my face. Good luck evicting me without a real lease. I know my rights, squatters' laws and all that. He was right. Our sublease was informal, and in Seattle, tenant protections are strong. It could take months to formally evict him, involving courts and lawyers I couldn't afford. I felt trapped. My friends advised me to document everything: texts, late payments, photos of the mess. But even that seemed daunting. One buddy suggested changing the locks while he was out, but that's illegal and could backfire big time. Another said to make his life hell until he leaves voluntarily. But I wasn't sure how far to go. Inside, I was boiling with rage. This guy was mooching off me, disrespecting my space, and acting like he owned the place. I started avoiding the apartment, crashing at a friend's couch some nights, but that wasn't sustainable. My work suffered. I was a junior marketer at a tech startup, and the stress made me snap at colleagues. I even considered breaking my own lease and moving out, but that meant losing my deposit and finding a new place in a hot market. No, I decided he had to go. But how? As the days dragged on, the hostility peaked. Alex started inviting friends over without asking, turning our living room into a party pad. One night I came home to find 3 strangers smoking on the couch, empty beer cans everywhere. I lost it. "What the hell, Alex? This is my apartment too?" He smirked and said, "Lighten up, it's Friday." His friends chuckled, and I felt humiliated in my own home. That was the breaking point. I retreated to my room, fuming, and that's when the idea hit me. I remembered something from a Reddit thread I'd read about bad roommates, using the power of information, or rather, misinformation, to your advantage. Alex had mentioned in passing that he was on probation for some minor offense from years ago, like a DUI or something. He'd laughed it off, distance, but I filed it away, digging deeper. Okay, I admit. I snooped a bit when he was out. I found out from his open laptop, he never locked it, that he had an outstanding warrant for unpaid fines related to that. Nothing huge, but enough to scare someone like him. But that wasn't my plan. No, I went smarter. I knew he was paranoid about his freelance work. He bragged about under-the-table gigs, avoiding taxes, that sort of thing. And he smoked weed daily, which was legal in Washington. But he dealt a little on the side too. Supplement income, as I overheard him tell a friend. So, I hatched a plan that was equal parts revenge and self-preservation. First, I documented everything meticulously: photos of the mess, screenshots of unpaid Venmo requests, even recorded audio of his late-night rants. But the key was psychological warfare. I started small, changing the Wi-Fi password and telling him it was down for maintenance, forcing him to use his data. He'd complain, but I'd shrug and say, "ISP issues, man." Then I accidentally threw out some of his junk mail, including what looked like important bills, and acted oblivious. But the real kicker, I faked a landlord inspection. Our actual landlord was hands-off, but Alex didn't know that. I printed a fake notice on official-looking letterhead, thanks. Free templates online stating that due to complaints, there'd be a full apartment inspection in 2 days, including checking for code violations, unauthorized subtenants, distance. And, here's the twist, possible drug residue, as the building was going zero tolerance. I slipped it under his door while he was sleeping. The next morning, I heard him freak out, rummaging through his room. He confronted me. "Did you see this? They're inspecting everything. I played dumb wide-eyed. Yeah, sucks. Probably because of the noise complaints from neighbors. His face paled. He knew his room was a disaster, reeked of pot, and had paraphernalia everywhere. But I wasn't done. That afternoon, I casually mentioned over breakfast, a forced politeness, that I'd heard from the landlord about involving authorities, if things weren't up to snuff. Maybe even a police walkthrough for safety. Total bluff, but he bought it hook, line, and sinker. See, Alex had more skeletons than I realized. Later that day, I overheard a phone call, me talking to myself in my room, loud enough for him to hear, where I pretended to be chatting with a friend who's a cop. Yeah, man, distance. If there's any illegal stuff, they could arrest on the spot. Warrants pop up in those checks. Pure fiction, but it lit a fire under him. By evening, he was packing boxes. Muttering curses, he avoided me, but I could see the panic in his eyes. That night, he blasted music one last time, but it felt desperate, like a final act of defiance. I smiled to myself in bed, knowing the end was near. So that's the situation I was in, distance. Backed into a corner by this leech of a roommate, who thought he could bully his way through life. I had to make a choice, keep suffering or fight back with cunning. Before I tell you what happened next and how it all exploded, I want you to pause right here. Hit that pause button if you need to. And comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have gone the legal route and waited months, or pulled something sneaky like me? Be honest, I won't judge. Alright, let's dive into the climax. The next morning, day 1 of my 48-hour countdown, I woke up to the sound of him slamming doors. I peeked out and saw him loading stuff into his beat-up Honda in the alley. Moving out already, I asked innocently, sipping my coffee. He glared at me, sweat beading on his forehead. Yeah, this place is a dump anyway, and you're a control freak. But his voice cracked, he was scared. I didn't argue, just nodded and said, cool. Just make sure to leave your key and settle the rent. He scoffed. Rent. Sue me. Oh, he had no idea. While he was out grabbing more boxes. I took my documentation to the next level. I emailed the real landlord a heads up about the situation, attaching proof of his non-payment, and seeking a small claims court form I'd filled out online. But the revenge peak. I called a non-emergency police line anonymously, reporting suspicious activity in the alley. Someone loading a car late at night, possible theft. Petty, maybe. But within an hour, a patrol car rolled by. Alex saw it from the window and flipped out. He rushed back and yelling, "Did you call the cops on me?" I denied it calmly. Why would I? But hey, if you've got nothing to hide. He didn't buy it, but it pushed him over the edge. By afternoon, he was begging friends for a couch to crash on via phone calls I overheard. His room was half empty, trash bags everywhere. I offered to help by suggesting a storage unit, but really, I was just watching the clock. That evening, he tried one last power play, invited his buddies over for a farewell smoke sesh. I shut that down quick. Not in here, man. Inspection tomorrow. Remember, they left grumbling. Alone again, he cornered me in the kitchen. Fine, you win. I'm out by tomorrow. But you're an asshole for this. I felt a twinge of guilt. Was I? But then remembered the months of hell. Just pay what you owe. And we're square. He tossed 500 in crumpled bills at me, partial payment, and stormed off. Night fell and I barely slept, adrenaline pumping. Day 2 dawned with him gone early for errands. I used the time wisely, changed the locks, with landlord approval, now that I'd looped them in, boxed up his remaining junk, and left it on the curb with a note. Your stuff. Don't come back. Legal. Borderline, but since he hadn't paid and was voluntarily leaving, I figured it was okay. He returned around noon, saw the new locks, and pounded on the door. Let me in, you bastard! I opened it a crack, chain on. You're out, Alex. Here's your deposit back minus damages. I slid an envelope with $500, fair I thought. He raged, threatened to call the cops himself, but I held up my phone. Go ahead, I've got everything documented, including your warrant. Bluff again. He didn't know I knew, but the mention made him freeze. How did you? I just smiled. Small world. He grabbed his boxes, cursed me out one last time, and peeled away in his car. By 2 p.m., 48 hours from my planned start, The apartment was mine again. Silence. Peace. I collapsed on the couch, exhausted but victorious. The aftermath was sweeter than I imagined. I cleaned the place top to bottom, aired out the stench, and posted for a new roommate, this time with ironclad references and a proper agreement. Found a great one, a quiet student who paid on time. As for Alex, I heard through mutual acquaintances he crashed with friends, then skipped town owing more debts. I filed in small claims for the remaining $2,000 and won by default when he didn't show. Got a garnishment on his freelance payments. Karma. My stress melted away. Work improved. I started hiking again, even dated someone without the roommate drama hanging over me. Looking back, it taught me to trust my gut and set boundaries early. But damn, it was a wild ride. What a crazy story, right? Sometimes you gotta get creative to protect what's yours. If you were on my side through all that, smash that like button. It means the world. And if you've got your own roommate horror tales or thoughts on if I handled it right, drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more insane Reddit-style stories. I've got plenty more where this came from. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.